There is no fate but what the filmmakers make for themselves. What up, everyone? I am Gallant Havoc, and I'm back with another review. So in my last review, I mentioned how I'd be branching out into movie territory, and I also mentioned how Star Wars was very near and dear to my heart. So now it's time for another one of those. And though it came out way back in November, I only just watched it this past week. Today we are reviewing another franchise very close to me, and that is none other than Terminator's most recent installment, Dark Fate. Now, I had heard this movie got torn a new one at release, so I will admit I was scared to watch it, despite being a longtime Terminator fan. Though I will admit I'm one of the select few who actually enjoyed everything between T2 and Dark Fate. Were they great movies? Hell no. Were they anywhere near as good as T2? Fuck no! They each had their moments and concepts that I did truly like, but we're not here to talk about them. We're here to talk about Dark Fate, the true sequel to T2, as intended by creator James Cameron. Did it deliver? Let's talk about it. There will be some spoilers ahead, so you know. So this movie was kind of a return to form. Every other movie after T2 was deemed non-canon. No Rise of the Machines, no Salvation, no Genesis. Dark Fate is the new T3, and is dramatically better. However, that does not save the movie from a certain commonplace thing in the film industry these days. Case in point, the need to keep old franchises alive in the name of money.
I'm here for money.
Taking advantage of nostalgia? Sure. But it does work from a business standpoint, and that's the sad truth. It all comes back around to money.
Money.
Repetition does get stale after a while, but this movie was a step in the right direction in comparison to the others. The biggest and most rewarding thing the movie had was the return of the OG Sarah Connor herself, Linda Hamilton, and she's as badass as ever. And let's not forget the most iconic character of the franchise, the T-800 himself, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Seriously, what's this guy's secret? Staying fit in his elder years. He is truly a machine. Dark Fate also introduces two entirely new heroes to the story. Mackenzie Davis plays an augmented human named Grace, who is very similar to Marcus from Terminator Salvation, one of the better parts of that movie. And there's the new leader of the Resistance, Danny, played by Natalia Reyes. And yes, I said new leader of the Resistance, because, spoilers, they killed John Connor at the beginning of the movie. And it's young John Connor from T2. And while shocking, I feel like it was necessary. No, hold on! Sure, it completely destroys a key factor of all the other movies. However, it was a good thing to do for the sake of shock factor and surprise. And when you think about it, it made sense for John to move over and let in the new future without Skynet. Because, you know, in T2 they actually destroyed Skynet completely. 3, Salvation, and Genesis do not happen. The new future enemy AI is something called Legion, which does somehow take pages from Skynet's book and wipes out humanity and creates Terminators. At least, their own versions. Which brings us to this guy, the Rev 9, played by Gabriel Luna, who I know from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., when he played Ghost Rider, mind you, the Robbie Reyes version.
I'm not the one who decides.
So cool. Back to the point. The Rev 9 is similar to the TX from T3, in the sense that it has a liquid metal skin and the metal endoskeleton underneath. Only difference is, the guy can split himself in two, so they both act like independent Terminators. Kinda like a T-1000 and T-800 tag team. Plus, the Rev 9 can actually blend in, as in full-on mimic emotion and even have manners. Not unlike the T-1000 when he needs to be friendly. T-1000 being friendly. Those are words I never thought I'd say. But the Rev 9 is full-on likable.
Sorry.
Which makes it more terrifying when he starts stabbing people left, right, and center. And that's another thing this movie does right. It brings back the thriller aspects you would have seen in T1 and T2. T3 kind of, but it was the first two that really brought in the sense of terror. They really returned to the Terminator roots, and I can appreciate that very much. Now, one of my biggest gripes was how they repeated the T-800 being sort of a comic relief cliche. In T3, the T-850 dialed it back because he was more strict, but he did have some funny points.
No, I am not shitting you.
In Genesis... oh god. But in this one, they take it to a different level. His name is Carl.
Carl, that kills people!
Uncle Bob was a funny on-the-spot name, but Carl? A killer machine blending into society, and Carl is the name you choose?
I'm never gonna fucking call you Carl.
Not only that, he does drapes! He did construction in Genesis for a reason, but drapes? Talk about keeping it low profile. And he is frequently making jokes. As he said in the movie,
I'm reliable, I'm a very good listener, and I'm extremely funny.
which I am not taking away from him. He does make several remarks where I laughed. But you see my point here. Now I know they're self-aware, they know not to take it too seriously. But maybe dial it back just a bit? The movie was directed by Tim Miller, who directed the Deadpool movies, and it shows at times. And I'm not complaining, he actually did pretty well. 9 times out of 10, comedy directors can do serious movies. Look at Jordan Peele's Get Out and Us. Peele is renowned for his comedy skits, and then he brings out those movies and holy shit are they ever terrifyingly good. So as a whole, I am giving Terminator Dark Fate a gallant rating of 3 out of 5. It had that classic Cameron Terminator feel, with a few new things thrown into it. I really did enjoy the movie, and I feel like the only problem a lot of people had was it was destroying the base conventions of the Terminator universe, mainly in the form of killing off John Connor. But it wouldn't be the first time they did that either, T3 and Genesis. Plus, it's a way of ushering in a new age. Whether we get a sequel to this or not, I'm fine either way. They end the movie pretty well, but there's also the possibility of a sequel. There always is. I also feel like this is the proper sequel T2 needed, and is actually a decent conclusion to a would-be trilogy. That being said, Dark Fate was an enjoyable time. Definitely not T2, but that movie set a ridiculously high bar. There's a reason it's considered one of the greatest action films of all time, and it also remains my second favorite film of all time, first being The Crow. But as for Dark Fate, I do recommend it to my fellow Terminator fans. So in the meantime, I am Gallant Havoc, and I'll be back.